Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye Arthatopyadvayanandan Atitadvaita Bhanatah Gurunaradhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamati. Hari Om. We'll chant 37th and 38th verse together. Iyam Samashtihi Utkrushtopadhitaya Vishuddha Sattva Pradhanam Etad Upahitam Chaitanyam Sarvajñatva Sarveshwaratva Sarvaniyantrutvadi Gunakam Avyaktam Antaryami Jagatkaranam Ishvara iti cha Vyapadishyate Sakala Ajnana Avabhasakatvat Yas Sarvajñas Sarvavite iti Shrutehe. We were seeing the portion where Swamiji described what is the first thing in the list of avastu. He said vastu is Satchidananda Brahma. On this vastu, there is avastu which is getting superimposed. And while describing avastu, the conditioning part, the first thing which Swamiji described was ajnanam. He said this ajnanam is at the root of this all avastus. From this ajnanam only, all other conditionings have come about. And then he described that this ajnanam can be looked at in two ways. One is called as Samashti ajnanam, another is called as Veshti ajnanam. What is ajnanam? That was also described. That was defined rather. So now we are looking at how does this ajnanam function at Samashti level. We saw the point that whenever a thing gets aggregated and you have a samashti, a totality, that totality becomes of a very different nature. So although the word is used ajnanam, when it is samashti ajnanam, the nature of that samashti ajnanam is very different. Easier word for that is maya. Ajnanam in samashti can be a little confusing. So it is good that we use ajnanam word for Veshti. But for our understanding, we can say this samashti ajnanam, the total ajnanam which is there, that is the same as Maya Upadhi. Now this Maya Upadhi has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamo guna. But in Samashti, Sattva guna is predominant. Rajas and Tamas, it is as though negligible. That is why the conditioning becomes Utkrushta, means it is the most exalted conditioning. At the same time, it is Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Vishuddha Sattva means not that there is absence of Rajas and Tamas. Rajas and Tamas is there, but predominance is there of Sattva Guna. Later Swamiji will say, for Jiva it is other way around. Sattva Guna is there, but predominance is sometimes of Rajas and Tamas. But we'll come to that later. Then 38th verse spoke about the conditioned consciousness. At total level, what is the nature of that? What is the title that this consciousness gets because of that conditioning? Right? Nirguna Brahma, pure consciousness, along with total conditioning, became conditioned consciousness. And the name that was given to this conditioned consciousness is Ishvara. So if somebody has this question, what is Vedanta's perspective about Ishvara? Then this 38th verse, that is the main go-to place to understand nature of Bhagavan according to Vedanta. Now, before we study these texts, before we systematically study Vedanta, we have our own understanding of Bhagavan. Now, that understanding should get deepened. It should get deepened with these kind of indicators. Right? It might start with some inexplicable power, some inexplicable support that we take whenever we are in difficulty. Some inexplicable altar where we pray, not knowing very much about how is Bhagavan, what is his nature like. Actually speaking, we cannot define Bhagavan's nature also. We cannot think about Bhagavan's nature also. But these are just indicators to help us deepen our devotion to Bhagavan. It is just like trying to think about end of space. Right? Space is infinite. We can only imagine what could be the end of space. But we cannot actually even think of the end of space. So that's why you see the indicators which are there. Sarvajñatva, Sarveshwaratva, Sarvantaryamitva. What that word Sarva refers to, that also we cannot think or we cannot come to a conclusion. What is the knowledge of Bhagavan? Sarvajña, we said, one who knows everything. Everything means what? One small portion we saw is karma and karma phala of jivas. But that is not the only thing, right? There are so many things in this creation. How everything should run, all that knowledge is there in Bhagavan. So it's a safe word. Sarva means, say, Bhagavan, I don't know one by one if I count and say, you know these things, I will always fall short. So best is I say, you know everything. Whatever I am familiar with, and also much more than that. In our Shiva Mahimna Stotram, Pushpadanta, he says this line, Tava Tattvam na janami kidrushose Maheshwara. That Bhagavan, I don't know what is your vastness, what is your power. Yadrushosi Mahadeva Tadrushaya Namo Namah. According to my understanding, I'm doing stuti, but Bhagavan, you know what is your expanse. Yadrushaha asi. How you are, that you yourself know. So in that way only, I'm doing my pranams to you. Now, important thing to note here is, He says, Tava tattvam na janami kidrushosi maheshwara. Not only Ishvara. If you say Ishvara, then it becomes another technical concept. How is Ishvara? Ishvara is Sarvajna, Sarveshwara, Sarvanyantrutva. But if you say, my Lord Shiva, that's why that Maheshwara is there. Means my Ishtadevata, my Bhagwan Krishna, my Bhagwan Rama, or any other Bhagwan whom we have as Ishtadevata. What is his nature? Say, as in his essential nature, my Bhagwan is Shuddha Chaitanya. Why? Because Adhishtanam, the substratum is Chaitanya only. Along with his conditioning, he has the most exalted conditioning by which he gets the titles of Sarvajna, Sarveshwara, Sarvanyantrutva. Not only Ishvara, you say my Bhagwan Ishvara, my Lord Shiva. That is his conditioned form, and he is appearing as his entire creation, ruling over this entire creation. But how can I worship my Bhagwan in that form? Nothing comes to mind when I say Sarvajna. That is why our Rishi said, you take one altar, one Pratima, one Murti of Bhagwan we take, one form of Bhagwan we take, and in that form, we invoke all these qualities. Bhagwan is not limited to this one form. He is that infinite power presiding over this universe. Now you see Dhyana shlokas of Bhagwan Shiva, Bhagwan Vishnu, all of them will point out this aspect. Apatala nabhaspuranta bhuvana brahmandam avispurata. All this entire creation, the sentient principle which presides over all of that. So like this, whatever is our understanding of Bhagwan, that should get deepened with our study of Vedanta. And more we reflect on every word of Bhagwan's nature, it should make us more and more nischinta. Nischinta means what? Free from anxiety. Right? Because my Bhagwan is Sarvajna, and my job is to do my duty well and surrender unto Bhagwan. No results will be kept away from me. Because Sarveshwara, Bhagwan's role is such that all karma phalas which are there, that he will give along with his grace. And Niyanta also, Bhagwan will make sure that no rules are transgressed. When Bali Raja, he does his all different yajnas and wants to become Indra, Bhagwan takes avatara to protect Indra. He says, according to this law which is there, he is the Indra right now. But you are such a pious king, you have done so much of sadhana, so much of rituals you have done with such devotion. I can create another loka for you, but right now you cannot become Indra. That is Niyanta. He will make sure that no rules are transgressed. So these are all the titles this Chaitanya gets because of this conditioning. Okay. So 38th verse is talking about Upahita Chaitanya, conditioned consciousness. Pure consciousness has no titles. There is no Sarvajñatva, Sarveshwaratva, Sarvanyantrutva. No titles are there in pure consciousness. All of them are attained, all of them are given only because of conditioning. Now, what are the names because of these titles? Is it Avyaktam, unmanifest? In Karanavastha, Bhagwan is unmanifest. So we need a manifest form. Otherwise, how will you even think about unmanifest? Right? What thought comes to mind if you say Bhagwan is Avyakta? Say all Karana, whatever effects have come, they have come from Bhagwan. Bhagwan only is appearing as all these effects. So I can take one effect and put my mind in Bhagwan's altar. Antaryami also we saw, one who controls from within, one who gives the right guidance, right prompting. That is Bhagwan. Vidyaranya Swamiji in Panchadashi 6th chapter, he gives an example of thread and a cloth. He says just like the thread controls the cloth, means if thread expands, the cloth expands. The thread shrinks, the cloth shrinks. He says in that way, Bhagwan controls jivas as Antaryami. He is seated inside and prompting our thoughts. But then he again clarifies in the next shloka. He says, because I have said this, don't think that self-effort is not important. Whatever self-effort we put, giving that energy, giving that more prompting, that also Bhagwan only does. It's a wonderful mechanism. Whatever we want to accomplish, that we should try to cultivate. He said that quality will be enhanced by Bhagwan. So Bhagwan is Antaryami. And Avyaktam, how he defines, he says that cloth, you can come to a finer portion of that cloth, which is the thread. You will find, there are different strings which are there in that thread. But if you go more in that string and try to find it further, you will not find anything. There will be a point when you cannot go any finer. So he says Bhagwan is like that. You take this entire world, you try to break it down, you will find 5 elements. And from those 5 elements, if you try to break it down further, there will be Avyakta, which is unmanifest, not seen through physical eyes. So that is Avyaktam. Jagat Karanam Ishvara iti cha vyapadishyate. Because it is cause of everything, that's why it gets the title Jagat Karanam. Sakala Ajnana Avabhasakatvat. Illuminator of entire Ajnanam, Samashti Ajnanam. That is why it gets all these titles, Jagat Karanam Ishvara. Then there is a Shruti quotation, Yaha Sarvajnyaha Sarvavit. This is from Mundaka Upanishad. Now this Sarvajna has 2 meanings. One meaning of Sarvajna is one who is the illuminator of all thoughts. Okay, pure consciousness, that is called Sarvajna because it illumines all thoughts. No matter in which intellect those thoughts rise, all of them is illumined by Chaitanya only. Okay, now this is slightly different from what we saw above, Sarvajñatva, right? We said Sarvajñatva means this Samashti Chaitanya, Bhagwan, knows everything in specifics. When we say Chaitanya knows things, it doesn't know things in details. No specific knowledge is illumined, no specific knowledge is known by Chaitanya. It is only of the nature of consciousness. Okay. So that is one meaning of the word Sarvajna. Second meaning is one who knows all, in specifics, in details. That is also the second meaning of Sarvajna. The first one is called as Samanya Jnanam. Samanya Jnanam, which doesn't have details of specifics. Vishesha Jnanam, it has details of specifics. But over here, both words are given, right? Sarvajnaha and Sarvavit. So how should we understand? We say Sarvajnaha means the first meaning. Samanya Jnanam, Bhagwan has. As that Shuddha Chaitanya, as pure consciousness, illumining all thoughts, illumining everything of this creation. That is Sarvajna. And Sarvavit means along with Samanya Jnanam, Bhagwan has Vishesha Jnanam also. not only of a particular thing, of this entire creation. So which karma phala has to go to whom? That is Vishesha Jnanam. Right? It is not Samanya Jnanam. In Puranas, it will be depicted in a very poetic way. Right? There is a Chitragupta who is writing, taking Gupta Chitra. In a hidden way, he is recording all our karmas and karma phalas. And according to that, karma phalas are given. Okay, so this is Sarvajnaha and Sarvavit. But most importantly, every quality, every aspect which is mentioned here, we should try to appreciate the meaning of that word and also see, as a devotee, how do I connect with Bhagwan in a deeper way? If I say Bhagwan is Antaryami, it means what? He knows every thought of mine. There is nothing that I can hide from Bhagwan, which also means there is karma phala which is gained for all actions, even those actions which are done without anybody else coming to know. Right? Whatever sadhana we do, either it is some japa, some pujanam, we don't have to tell the whole world, right? Whatever things we are doing. Why? Because Bhagwan is Antaryami. He is karma phala data. So whatever karma phalas have to come of even those sadhanas which are done in solitude without anybody coming to know, the sadhaka says, I'm content even with that. Karma yoga, for that matter, he will silently do his work without anybody coming to know, just like our Shabriji. Several years coming to her guru's ashram, doing all the work without a single person coming to know. But Bhagwan says, whether others see or not, doesn't matter. I am Antaryami. The results of those actions will come certainly to that sadhaka. Now, sadhaka becomes very alert also to be very careful of our karmas, because karma phaladata is all pervading and is also in our own heart. Now, 37th verse just said about Upadhi, the conditioning. 38th verse spoke about Upahita, that pure consciousness conditioned by this Upadhi, that Upahita Chaitanya. Upahita means conditioned consciousness. Now, 39th verse is elaborating the nature of that Upadhi. Samashti Upadhi, which is there, Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. What does it look like? So what are the qualities of that Upadhi? 39th verse. Ishvarasya iyam samashtihi, Ishvarasya iyam samashtihi, akhila karanatvat, karana shariram, ananda prachuratvat, koshavat achadakatvacha, Anandamaya Kosha, Sarvoparamatvat, Sushuptihi, Ataha eva, Sthula Sukshma Prapancha Layasthanam, Iti cha uchyate. Iyam samashtihi. This samashti upadhi which is there. Now Swamiji is giving 3 predominant indicators of this samashti upadhi. What is the first one? Iyam samashti, this samashti conditioning which is there. Upadhi means conditioning. Upahita means conditioned consciousness. These two words, if you want to write down or note, it is very good. It will keep coming in entire Vedantasara. Upadhi means conditioning. Upahita means conditioned consciousness. And later Swamiji will use the word Anupahita, means unconditioned pure consciousness. If you want an example, pot is Upadhi. Okay, pot is the conditioning. Pot space is Upahita, conditioned space. And the infinite space is Anupahita. Okay. Infinite space is Anupahita, unconditioned. Unconditioned space. Three words will be used. Ishvarasya iyam samashtihi akhila karanatvat karana shariram. So the first indicator of this samashti upadhi is, it is the karanam, it is the cause of everything, including subtle creation and also this gross world which has come about. It is the karanam of space. Tattva Bodha we studied, how this creation process happens. All of these five elements, they have emerged from Chaitanya plus Maya Upadhi. So because it is the cause of entire creation, this Upadhi gets the name Karana Shariram. Okay, and Chaitanya is getting conditioned by this Upadhi. Now you will say, I thought Karana Shariram was for Jiva. How come Karana Shariram is used for Ishvara? So that is the beauty of Vedantasara. This is what makes a Prakarana Grantha slightly advanced. Right? Between Veshti and Samashti, they say there is nothing separately called as Veshti. If Brahma plus Maya Upadhi is the Karana of entire creation, then what is the need to separate the Karanam for this individual Jiva? Right? In this creation, Jiva is also included, my Upadhis are also included. If you are able to dissolve that individuality and think only in terms of Samashti, we will become students of Mandukya Upanishad. Okay, this has been taken from Mandukya. This Prakarana Grantha uses Mandukya as the baseline Upanishad. Because Pramana has to be Upanishad, right? All of it has to come from there. So in Mandukya, this is how it is analyzed. There is only one Samashti. In that, we should dissolve our Upadhi, in particular Raga Dveshas, our preferences, and then come to abide in Shuddha Chaitanya. But if you want to keep it separate, that is also okay. Next again, Jiva's Upadhi will be separately described. But what has to happen is, our thinking should expand. Our definition of I should expand. Our definition of being accepting of everybody. Right? That is the main result of this. This is not a technical concept. Samashti, Veshti, it is not only an analysis that we are doing, but mainly appreciating what is the thought process there. So either you dissolve all individual conditionings to Samashti and then analyze Samashti and Upahita Chaitanya, Samashti Upadhi and Upahita Chaitanya, or you come to Bahujiva Vada, individual Upadhis you analyze, examine, have devotion to Bhagwan and dissolve this individuality in that totality. Main thing is we have to come to unconditioned consciousness, right? So there are two paths. One, you go from Eka Jiva path, little difficult because conditioning is not even, individual conditioning is not even taken up. The other one is Bahujiva Vada, where I am there, Jagat is there, and Bhagwan is there. So that is Bahujiva Vada. But there also, it should be the same. understanding. Okay, so first indicator is Akhila Karanatvat Karana Shariram. That Upadhi of Bhagavan is the Karanam of not only this, earth that we are living in, but all Brahmandas. Bhagavan Krishna said, I will show this Leela to Yashoda ji when she made him open his mouth. When she saw all Brahmandas inside, what was it? This line, Akhila Karanatvat Karana Shariram. The cause of this entire creation, that is Bhagavan's Upadhi. Second is Ananda Prachuratvat Koshavat Achadakatvacha Anandamaya Kosha. Now Bhagavan's conditioning is called as Anandamaya Kosha. I thought Anandamaya Kosha is my Upadhi. So no, this is Eka Jiva. Samashti Upadhi is called as Anandamaya Kosha. Now Anandamaya Kosha. Right? So there are two words. Anandamaya, one word, and Kosha word is there. So why are these two words there in the first place? Reason is given. Ananda Prachuratvat. Because there is predominance of Ananda in that avastha, because Sattva Pradhana Upadhi is there. Ananda is predominant. That is why Anandamaya word is used. And why the word Kosha is there? Koshavat Achadakatvat. It covers this word, like a scabbard. A scabbard covers a sword. Like that, this Upadhi, this conditioning which is there, it covers Bhagwan's nature. Not for Bhagwan. Huh? This is the important point here. This Koshavat Achadakatvat, Bhagwan's Upadhi doesn't delude him. Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana Upadhi doesn't delude Bhagwan. It deludes us. His Maya is so powerful that it hides his nature from us, from Jivas. This is the mantra we see in Ishavasya Upanishad, where it is said, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Pihitam Mukham. Bhagwan, your form is covered by this bright and brilliant disk, golden orb. Why is it golden? Why is it bright and brilliant? Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Apahitam Mukham. Apihitam means it is covered. Satyasya Pihitam Mukham Tattvam Pushan Napavrunu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. Bhagwan, please take away this Maya, in front. Why? Because I am seeker of truth. I want to see your form. I want to revel in your nature. But without his grace, this Kosha, it doesn't get removed. And because it covers his nature from us, that word is there. Koshavat Achadakatvacha. Anandamaya Kosha. So first one, the name was Karana Shariram. Second title of that Upadhi is Anandamaya Kosha. And third one, Sarva Uparamatvat Sushuptihi. What is Bhagwan's conditioning, Upadhi? He says it is that in which this entire creation dissolves back. Sarva Uparamatvat. That is why this is also called as Stula Sukshma Prapancha Laya Sthanam. It is that substratum in which Laya, dissolution of gross world, subtle world, and the causal world, all of that happens. Actually, this is the causal. So you can just say Stula and Sukshma. That's why only two words are used. The gross world and the subtle world, they dissolve back into this causal world, which is Bhagwan's Upadhi. Means in other words, this is Pralaya Avastha. Right? We know when Pralaya happens, entire gross world, all names and forms are dissolved. And this subtle world, that is also dissolved. In Bhagavatam, we had seen Naradji telling his story. Just to explain, how this devotion to Bhagwan, how powerful it is. When Bhakti Mata, she is lamenting and she is having so much of sorrow that both her sons are not rising up, Jnana and Vairagya. They are the two sons of Bhakti Mata. Both of them have become old and they are not waking up. So to tell Bhakti Mata what is the greatness of devotion, I think this comes later. To tell Bhagwan Vedvyasji that why he should compose Bhagavatam, which has devotion to Bhagwan as its main theme. He says the power of devotion is such that it can transform our lives. And he says, I was an ordinary boy, did some sadhana. Rishi Munis used to come. I served them very well. And they gave me this knowledge. They gave me teachings of devotion to Bhagwan. And I increased my sadhana so much that I was almost about to become a Parshada of Bhagwan Vishnu. But at that time, he says, Pralaya happened. Mahapralaya happened. This entire creation got dissolved. This is that Layasthanam, Stula, Sukshma, Prapancha Layasthanam. But the beauty of Pralaya is such that when creation again comes back, all jivas and their karma phalas which are there, they are also brought back in the same way. Naradji says, when I woke up, I didn't wake up as that same ordinary boy. I woke up as Devarshi Narad. So where did all jivas go? All jivas went into Bhagavan. Bhagwan's Upadhi is, Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana Upadhi. But the substratum of that is Shuddha Chaitanya only. So we should not get confused. Huh? Where did this creation get dissolved? We say it got dissolved in Bhagwan. But in other place we said, those who attended 6th chapter of Chandogya, in Pralaya, entire creation goes back into Sat. You say, yes, remember what we discussed earlier? Sat is that Vastu. It is a substratum in which this Upadhi is there. And all of the other things which are happening is the play of this Upadhi. In Chaitanya, there is no Srishti, there is no Pralaya, there is no Sthiti also. Okay, so this is Upadhi of Bhagavan. Now, as though Swami Sadananda is anticipating the question that could have come in our mind, he says, I thought Anandamaya Kosha, Karana Sharira, Sushupti, all these things belong to Jiva. He says, that is true. But it only depends upon where our attention is. Here again, he brings the concept of Veshti and Samashti. If our attention is on individual, attention is on only this conditioning out of ignorance, then Shastras say, Jiva has separate conditioning, Bhagwan has different conditioning. Veshti conditioning is different, Samashti conditioning is different. But if your attention is not on individual conditioning, you can dissolve everything at conditioning level in totality and then just look at Shuddha Chaitanya and Samashti conditioning. Okay. But now he says, if you really want to focus on individuals, you can do that also. We can look at this Ajnanam from Veshti standpoint also. 40th verse you see. Yatha vanasya Veshti abhiprayena vrukshaha iti anekatva vyapadeshah yatha va jalashayasya Veshti abhiprayena jalani iti tatha ajnanasya Veshti abhiprayena tat anekatva vyapadeshah Indro Mayabhihi Pururupa Iyate, Indro Mayabhihi Pururupa Iyate, Ityadi Shrutehe, Ityadi Shrutehe. Now he is giving the same example, forest and tree, drop and the pond. He says, Yatha vanasya vyashti abhiprayena vrukshaha iti anekatva vyapadeshaha. Just like that same forest, Yatha vanasya means of that forest, from the standpoint of individual conditionings. From the standpoint of one conditioning, it is called as a tree. Yatha vanasya vyashti abhiprayena vrukshaha iti anekatva vyapadeshaha. It is called as tree, and there is manyness in these trees. Or he says, from that drop of water and lake standpoint, pond standpoint, if you look at one drop, then that same pond you will say is a drop. And there are many drops, all of them together make that pond. There are many trees, all of them together make this forest. This is both ways are okay. We can explain in either way, Samashti and Veshti. But actually speaking, there is only one. Okay, there is only one forest, there is only one lake. If we choose to look at individual, then yes, you can define it as drops, you can define it as trees. Jalani iti tatha ajnanasya vyashti abhiprayena tat anekatva upadesha. In the same way, this ajnanam which is there, it is actually speaking only samashti. But if your attention is on individual conditioning, then we can also define it as vyashti, and many vyashtis, means many ajnanams are there. And there are Shruti mantras which quote this point, that ajnanam is many. Previously he said there are Shruti mantras which say there is only one ajnanam. Ajam ekam lohitam shukla krishnam. That Shruti quotation was there. Now another Shruti quotation to show that ajnanam can be looked at as many. Indro mayabhihi pururupa iyate. Indraha is not Devarshi Indra over here. Indra means Shuddha Chaitanya. Idam drakshati iti idandraha. That which illumines all idam, that which witnesses all idam, that is Shuddha Chaitanya. That Shuddha Chaitanya is called as idandraha. But devatas are paroksha priya. Paroksha priya hi devata. So that na is dropped, or one of the da is dropped, so it becomes Indraha. This is there in Aitreya Upanishad, this etymology of Indra. Simple words, Indra means pure consciousness. That pure consciousness appears as many. Indro mayabhihi pururupa iyate. This Shuddha Chaitanya appears as many with the help of this Ajnanam or Maya Shakti, which is many. Okay, so both quotations are there. One to show that Ajnanam can be looked at as many. Another quotation is Ajnanam is one. Okay, Samashti, another is Veshti. 41st verse is just a culmination of this point. Atra vyasta samasta vyapitvena, atra vyasta samasta vyapitvena, vyashti samashtita vyapadeshaha, vyashti samashtita vyapadeshaha. Atra means in the case of this ajnanam, which we just saw, vyasta samasta vyapitvena. Vyasta means when our attention is on, individual attention is on the differences which is there in that individual, then it is called as vyashti. If you let go of that attention on that individual, samasta vyapitvena, if attention is on the totality, not on that individuality, then that is called as Samashti. Okay, this is how both of the names are given. There are several examples which are there. One is what we just saw, right? If our attention is on tree, then it becomes Veshti. But if you dissolve that tree identity and just look at all the trees together, so it is only one thing in which that individual tree is also included. Okay, that forest is Samashti. If you are taking, let us say, a lump of clay, right? And from that clay, we make different pots, pans, different names and forms are there. Now, from the standpoint of each name and form, so what is this? This is a pot. What is this? This is a pan. From each standpoint, it will become Veshti. But if you ask the clay, right, that clay which is there, from the clay standpoint, there is only one Samashti. All these are me only. Right? So Bhagavan must be feeling that way when we try to call ourselves as different Veshti, separate from totality. He says this Panchamahabhuta Sharira, it is my Upadhi only. How come we separated it from his Upadhi? Our thoughts, our mind, that is part of Bhagavan's Upadhi. Right? So our prayer to Bhagavan is, may we merge this more and more in you and purify ourselves even at Upadhi level, even at conditioning level. In that forest example, there is another way to look at it. One tree we said is Veshti. Right? All of that put together is Samashti, which is the forest. And you might have heard the term Vana Devata. Right? In villages, they say this forest has a presiding deity. Now the question we should ask is, does that presiding deity preside over one tree or that entire forest? So not one tree, that entire forest is its conditioning. Like that is Bhagavan's conditioning. Samashti Upadhi Upahita Chaitanya. And we will realize the main point of this verse is, what is Veshti, what is Samashti, it just depends on where we decide to pay attention. Okay. If there are a group of people, right, who are there, let us say Vedantasara group of students. Now Vedantasara group of students, that is Samashti. Right? And I, as the student of that class, I am Veshti. Now within me only, this body is Samashti and a part of my body is Veshti. Right? If somebody asks me, how are you? I say, I'm okay, but my, let us say, hand is hurting. So you say that hand is Veshti and you become Samashti. That is the main point, huh? That wherever we decide to pay attention, that is where we will start seeing things to be. And more one can see Samashti even at conditioning level. To that extent, this sadhaka will be happy. Okay, yesterday we saw Janak Maharaj and Dashrath Maharaj. Janak Maharaj is telling Dashrath Maharaj that this sambandha which has been forged between both these kingdoms, what this means is not only Sitaji is going to come to Ayodhya, but all my resources are at your disposal. Meaning my Veshti which was there, this Mithila Nagari I thought was separate from Ayodhya. But because of this sambandha, I have redrawn my boundaries. All of that is our kingdom now. So my resources are available to you. And of course, your resources are available to me. Okay, so that is another thing to think about. How this Samashti works. Right? What we call as Veshti, that is Samashti for somebody else. Right? Like from the standpoint of the class, body became Veshti. But from the standpoint of a hand, this Sharira will become Samashti. Sometimes, ant is there which can go on your hand. And if it goes from one end to another end, it would feel like it is doing parikrama of this, some big place, some jagat. Suddenly it will, go somewhere and then come out. Main thing is the perspective with which we look. That decides what is Veshti and Samashti. Now Swamiji is elaborating what does this individual conditioning look like. Now he defined total conditioning. He says, okay, if we want to define individual conditioning also, we can do that. If our attention is on individual. Okay, so that is the 42nd verse. Iyam vyashtihi nikrushta upaditaya malina sattva pradhana etat upahitam chaitanyam alpadnyatva anishvaratwadi gunakam prajnah iti uchyate eka ajnana avabhasakatvat. Those who are attending Sanskritam class, iti uchyate eka ajnana avabhasakatvat. You see that iti uchyata is given. So now you will know it is not a printing mistake. There is a lopa sandhi which is happening there. Okay, iti uchyate become ayadi sandhi first and then lopa sandhi happen. It's very nice, you study something and then you can apply it where you really want to apply it. That is the whole purpose of studying Sanskritam. Iyam vyashtihi. Now vyashti ajnanam is being defined. Samashti ajnanam, samashti conditioning was defined. Now individual conditioning. Iyam vyashtihi nikrushta upaditaya. Bhagwan's upadhi was utkrushta upadhi. What is Jiva's upadhi? He says nikrushta upadhi. Why are you calling it nikrushta? Because it is malina sattva pradhana. What is malina sattva? There is sattva guna, no doubt, but rajas and tamas overpowers that sattva many times. Means mind is so disturbed, or there's too much of karma, too much of action is there. And tamas means mind doesn't want to do anything. Climatic conditions of the mind, Gurudev's word. So our mind is like that. That is why we have to do a lot of sadhana to stay in sattva guna. Bhagavan Krishna told Arjuna, right? Arjuna, nitya sattvasto bhava. Stay in sattva as much as possible. Meaning what? Rajas and tamas will be there. But may all your decisions, may everything be governed by sattva guna. And for this, you will have to take care of your food. You will have to take care of how much you interact. All other inputs will have to be very careful. Right? So in 17th chapter, 18th chapter, 14th chapter, little bit of 16th also. So Bhagavan elaborates what are the sources of increasing sattva guna. Because our conditioning is malina sattva pradhana. If we don't do our sadhana, don't do our nitya karma, whatever japa we are doing, other sadhanas, working with karma yoga buddhi, it doesn't take much time for rajas and tamas to come up. But for Bhagavan, there is no problem of that sort. His conditioning itself is Vishuddha Sattva. Always there is predominance of Sattva Guna. Now this Upahita Chaitanya, what was the 42nd verse? It is just talking about there is this Veshti Upadhi also. Just like in 37th verse, right? There was mention of Samashti Upadhi. In 42nd verse, there is mention of Veshti Upadhi. Now 38th verse had spoken about Samashti Upahita Chaitanya, the total conditioned consciousness. Now 43rd verse is talking about individual conditioned consciousness. Veshti, Upahita, Chaitanya. That is why the first word is Etad Upahitam Chaitanya. This consciousness which is conditioned by individual Ajnanam, Veshti Ajnanam, it is the same Chaitanya that pure consciousness only got conditioned. What are the titles that it gets? Wonderful titles. Alpajna. Alpajna means it knows very little. Memory is so limited. Trying to memorize one thing, other thing goes away. By the time you study one text and say, I will go and memorize it. Atma Bodha we studied. Atma Bodha I'll try to memorize. By the time Sadhana Panchakam, that is gone. That was the first one that we studied. After that, you said Hastamalaka Stotram. It's very nice. We can memorize. But by the time you do Hastamalaka, Atma Bodha started evaporating. That is Alpajna. Jiva is always Alpajna. With sadhana, it can become Bahujna. Bahujna means it can know many things, but it can never become Sarvajna. At conditioning level, Jiva cannot become Sarvajna. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji, all his devotees and disciples used to tell him, Bhagwan, you are Sarvajna. It is said they were going across Ganga ji in a boat. And Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji had his danda. Right? Sannyasis, they carry that danda. He dipped his danda, his stick, in that river, Ganga ji, and just a small portion got wet in water. He told his disciples, our jnanam is like this. How much of water you see, the depth of Ganga ji which is there, and how much this stick has, whatever we know is like that. And more we try to understand any field, we realize how vast that knowledge is. So best way is to do our part, but never become proud of our jnanam. Right? Because Jiva's conditioning itself is alpajna. No matter how much it gets, it will always remain little. And Bhagwan was Sarveshwaraha. Now you try to map both these things. What is Jiva? Anishwaraha. Means it has no control over anything. Sometimes we say we will change everybody, bring everybody under our control. You should remember these words. Jiva's Upadhi is Anishvara. Ishvara means one who can rule. Right? Even if somebody thinks, I'm going to rule forever, Bhagwan shows, in and through life, that this Ishvaratva really is my title. There is a time when Jiva's Ishvaratva gets taken away. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji said in Bhaja Govindam, right? Yavat vitto parjana saktaha, tavan nija parivaro raktaha. Means whenever there is productivity in that person, whenever that person has ability to contribute, until that point his Ishvaratva will be there. But once that ability starts declining, if there is a new government that is going to come, then this person's Ishvaratva also goes down. Whatever we see in the world, we should try to get Shastriya perspective towards that thing. We are not interested in judging things outside. Our main purpose is whatever is said in Shastra, according to that, making our perspective of this world. Okay. Anishvara Anishvaratvadi Gunakam. Sadananda Swamiji says, two are sufficient. Why unnecessarily elaborate more? For Bhagwan, there was Sarva Niyantrutva. So many things he said, right? Here he is not elaborating much. He says Jiva is Alpajna and Jiva is Anishvara. Now the good news is, for Moksha, we don't have to become Sarvajna like Ishvara. We don't have to become the ruler like Ishvara. We don't need any of those attributes in ourselves for Moksha. What do we need for Moksha? We need to purify this mind by dissolving it with Bhagwan's mind, by becoming devoted to Bhagwan and knowing that I am that Vastu, I am that Shuddha Chaitanya in which all these conditionings are appearing. Okay, Vedanta Jnanam is not here to make us Sarvajna. From Alpajna, it will not make us Sarvajna. From Anishvara, it will not make us Sarveshvara. If that was the expectation, then sorry to disappoint. Initially, we also think that way, that if we study Vedanta, then I'll become very powerful. I will know everything. You see, that is upasana phalam. If we do upasana, make our mind single pointed, then our abilities of the mind, they increase. Lot of siddhis will come. But jnanam is only to tell us that I am that pure consciousness in which all these things are appearing. That is moksha. Not being a finite jiva and trying to be a wonderful finite jiva. Right? So letting go of finitude, that is the purpose of Vedanta. So this knowing and Ishvaratva, all of them, at a jiva's level, they will bring some or the other finitude. Right? So those conditionings, knowing that I am not those conditionings. Prajnaha iti uchyate. So the same Chaitanya conditioned by Veshti Upadhi gets the title of Prajnaha. Who gets the title? Chaitanya gets the title. Okay. Conditioned consciousness is called as Prajnaha. Eka ajnana avabhasakatvat, because it is illumining only one ajnana. Okay. More we will see in the next session. But I hope the flow of thought is, you are able to catch, and you can go back and just look at what is each verse, what is the main theme of that. Which verse is talking about Upadhi, which verse is talking about Upahita Chaitanya. Because it's a long text, if we are able to do that, we'll get a very good hold on this Vedanta Siddhanta. Vedantasara, right? It is essence of entire Vedanta, but the thought flow should be clear. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. One meaning of Sarvajna is Sarva and Jna. Sarvascha asau gyascha. Yes, that is the other meaning of Sarvajna. That Shuddha Chaitanya which is all, and that Shuddha Chaitanya which is knower of all. Sarvascha asau nyascha. That is one meaning of Sarvajna. Another meaning is one that knows all specifics. Right? So that is also Sarvajna. So both ways we can look at it. That is why when it was said Sarvajnaha Sarvavit. So we said first meaning of Sarvajna is Shuddha Chaitanya, that which has Samanya Jnanam, and Sarvavit is the one that has Vishesha Jnanam. Okay.